Welcome to the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Every week, you'll hear strategies for building your online service-based business your way. And now, here's your host, veteran freelancer, author, and TEDx speaker, Laura Briggs.
Have you ever had what I call the opposite of a King Midas day or even week in your freelance business? What I mean is it feels like nothing is going to work. Everything you do just feels like a failure and it feels like it's imploding in front of you. If you're having one of these days or weeks, I encourage you to take a step back. Get out of your house if you can, because often that'll give you that fresh perspective to come back and be able to troubleshoot. Sometimes it's just the way that things go. It's an off day, but other times it's our own mindset that's holding us back. And that's the perfect way to introduce this episode of the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. What to do if nothing is converting with your clients. It always blows my mind when I see this topic addressed in a Facebook group by a freelancer who's saying, I've sent hundreds of pitches. I've had my website up for 2 years and I haven't landed a client yet. Very early on in the days of me coaching freelancers and selling courses to freelancers, I had someone come to me to say she had sent over 200 pitches on Upwork and not one client had ever reached out to her or decided to work with her. This was shocking to me because when I do anything in my business and I feel like I'm hitting a wall and it's just not converting, I'm either going to figure out, is this a matter of this isn't the right fit for me? Or is there someone who knows this system, software, or concept better so that I can hire them and work with them or learn from them to be able to fix it? So please don't wait until you've sent 100 pitches or until you've spent 2 years on Upwork or a year and a half on LinkedIn and have zero results to show for it. Always take a step back and try to figure out what you can do on your own. When I first started trying to pitch to speak at TEDx events, I had no clue what I was doing, but I submitted several applications and all of them were denied. Now, I thought my idea was really good, but obviously it wasn't resonating. And I didn't realize the small mistakes I was making in the application process until I hired a coach who'd landed 4 TEDx talks on his own. And even though we had to work at it for a while and get through some serious rejections, that ended with 5 different invitations to give TEDx talks. So it's always good to be able to find someone who's been down the path you've been down before, rather than just trying to make things work on your own and ultimately getting extremely frustrated about that process, because it can be really, really frustrating to go through that on your own. So when nothing is converting with your clients, there are a couple of different things that you want to check and evaluate. But the first one is really important because it's your mindset. So sometimes when you're in a funk and you have a client roster built with people you don't like to work with, you will subconsciously hold yourself back from pitching because internally your mind is saying, oh, we don't want any more clients like that. If working and bringing on freelance clients means being as frustrated as I have been with this group of clients, no thanks, I'm not pitching. I've seen more than one freelancer be held back by this and kind of not even realize it, that this was a subconscious battle that was happening and keeping them from being able to effectively pitch. It became a really easy way to back burner the process of pitching because they were like, I'm working with nightmare clients. I really don't want any more of those. So therefore, I'm not marketing at all, which, as you know, I always say you should always be marketing. So that's why I mentioned this first. You need to know if this is something that's potentially holding you back. So think about it. Who's on your roster right now? Is it projects you enjoy doing? Are you being paid well to work on those particular projects? These are things you want to take into account because none of the other elements will work of the things to evaluate and check before going forward if you don't have the belief that you can land good clients or that you want clients right now. So start with that. It's happened to me before too, where I've had, maybe one nightmare client and they either consumed all my time or I was working on the project and feared bringing on someone else like them. And that puts you in a really dangerous position, right? Because then if you lose that client, you don't have anything and it can be devastating financially to pursue that route. So once we've figured out whether or not it's your mindset, there are some other different things that you can check. Now, if it is your mindset and you have a disaster client, this is the perfect opportunity to figure out what are you going to do to get out of that relationship? How are you going to replace that client? What are you going to do on the marketing side of things to bring in more business so you don't have this fear of holding back on your pitching? So that's what I would recommend doing first. Now, the next thing that you want to check is your samples. Whatever samples you are providing to your prospective clients, they speak volumes, and you cannot afford to have samples that don't communicate the quality of your work. A lot of times we forget to update our samples once we've created them, but if you're like me, you'll probably look back at things you created in the past and cringe because you feel like you've gotten better at your craft since then. So we don't want to be sending out work to prospective clients that isn't putting your best foot forward. It should be your highest quality work, the work that you are most proud of when you are pitching. And the samples should always reflect where you're at right now rather than where you were at 6 months ago or a year ago. So check your samples. Are they outdated? Are there errors in them that you didn't see before? Do they simply not reflect the type of work you're doing anymore? You might need to update it if you've changed services. So that's thing number one. Now, samples work in conjunction with the second thing you should check, which is your pitch. And more often than not, if something isn't working with your marketing, it is your pitch or your samples. One or both of these things is off for your marketing method or for your specific market. So if nothing is converting and you've checked your mindset and it's not that you're kind of subconsciously blocking yourself, the next thing to consider is the pitch and the samples. This is where I'd put your energy and any money you might have to have someone proofread this material or give you some feedback. If you're in a Facebook group where you can ask for recommendations, if you have a friend who's a great editor who can give you their perspective, this is where you want to go next to figure out what isn't working. What's so unfortunate about the pitch and the samples being off is that they can slam the door of opportunity shut with clients who otherwise would have been perfect for you. And you might never even know about it. So you might not realize that it was your samples that were causing the problem or that your pitch was off. And the other unfortunate part of this is often it's little things that can be tweaked that can fix it and lead to conversions. I can't tell you how many times I've helped somebody fix their pitch and they were like, wow, I've got like 3 phone calls scheduled next week. It's these little things about how we package and present ourselves to other people, but they make a huge difference in your success rate. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask your freelance friends. Come back and look at your pitch and samples with a more critical eye. What can you improve? It's also surprising how many people send out, samples that are not their best work, pitches that are not their best work, especially if you are a writer or any type of creative. Your work needs to be spot on and error-free. It's very important. It would be nice if clients looked beyond that, and unfortunately, they just don't. So I speak from a very professional business perspective of I've had clients who hired me as their content or project manager and expressly told me, don't hire anyone who has grammar mistakes in their pitch or has misplaced, punctuation or spelling. So be aware of that. That's how clients think. Whether you want to argue that that's fair or not, that's how they think. The next thing to consider is your market. Are you marketing to the wrong people? Are you marketing to people that only work with agencies? Are you marketing to organizations that don't have the money to pay you? Are you marketing to people on LinkedIn, but your people aren't hanging out on LinkedIn, so they're never seeing your message? Check your market, but after you've checked your samples and your pitch. This is another good opportunity to engage someone else in the world of freelancing and ask for their expertise about whether or not your market could potentially be off or the way that you're marketing. The next thing to check is your follow through. Most business is done in the follow-up stages. I'm always surprised by freelancers who say, well, I sent 10 pitches and no one ever answered me. Okay, well, how many times did you follow up with those 10 people? Oh, I didn't. I just sent a pitch and I never heard from them again. Most business does not come from sending a pitch and getting a signed contract back in reply. There is a nurturing process that most clients have to go through. So if you're missing out on this, you are leaving money and business on the table. So check your follow through. Do you have a system to capture who you've pitched? When you followed up with them? Did they have objections? Did they schedule a call with you? Did you send them a proposal? You have to follow up after the proposal phase too. So a lot of what we do as freelancers is selling and being consistent with that selling process. Think about someone who tried to sell you something that you maybe didn't necessarily want, understand, or feel like you even needed, right? A great example would be if you've ever interacted with a life insurance agent or someone trying to get you to fill out a last will and testament. It's something that's very easy to push off and say, I don't want to do it. And it was probably the fact that this person followed up with you multiple times before you decided to go through with it and get everything set up. My CPA was on me for 18 months about setting up an S Corp, and it just didn't feel that urgent to me. But finally, he replied to the email chain again and said, this is the 7th time I'm recommending you do this. And it was like, oh man, like all this follow-up that he had invested in something that was going to benefit me anyways, made it much easier for me to say, yes, send me the invoice to set up the S Corp. So be aware of how important follow-up is. If you're not doing it, I would not be surprised if you're not bringing in a lot of business, because clients need hand-holding. Yes, we live in an amazing digital age where you don't have to see any of your clients in person if you don't want to. But that also means that we have to make our clients feel comfortable with hiring what is essentially a stranger over the internet. We need to break down those barriers and make them feel trusting of us. And the follow-up is where you do that. It also shows persistence, and some of your clients will love that, because it's amazing how many freelancers don't follow up. Sometimes you can even get your foot in the door ahead of other people just because you followed up so many times. And keeping all of this organized, having a CRM system is a great way to go about it. So you can get up to 200 email open notifications tracked through HubSpot. After that, you have to pay. But for anyone who's pitching and using cold email, this is a great method to use, because you can see when people are opening your message, and it might be that perfect opportunity to remind you to go back and follow up. And following up is so easy, right? It doesn't take that much time. We're not talking about recreating the pitch or spending hours and hours thinking about it. This is a quick reach out to our prospective client to see if they've had an opportunity to review what we sent or to showcase a little more personality. So you can batch all of your follow-ups together. Maybe you've got 10 clients you pitched last week. Carve out an hour of this week to reach out to all 10 of them and see where things stand. Being the person who follows up can really increase your conversions significantly. So now that you've checked your follow through, the last thing to check is your pricing. Sometimes your pricing is just off, and across the board, you will find all kinds of things about people who charge $5, $500, $5,000. So you never want to base your pricing on anyone else's numbers. It's a huge reason why I never discuss pricing in my Facebook group or elsewhere where I'm talking about freelancers, because there's literally so many variables that go into it. I'm sorry, but there is no one size fits all answer. I cannot tell you, oh, if you charge this, you'll have tons of business. Whatever you charge, you will have clients that think that that's cheap and a great deal. You will have clients who also think it's way too expensive, and they have no idea how you get paid that much to do what you do. So because we're going to hit that at every level, it's about finding a price that works for you while also still being competitive in the market. You can do a lot of harm to yourself by having pricing that is too low. I have had a client turn me down because he felt I was too cheap. Now, I've had a lot more clients tell me I was too expensive, and that's okay too. I never take that personally. A lot of those people will never convert into business at all, but some of them will come back to you later or refer other colleagues to you now that they have a better idea of your baseline pricing. So it's never worth burning the bridge. Or I see so many freelancers like, I can't believe this person wants to pay, $5 for something that takes 10 hours of work and years of experience. Let it go. Do not put your energy into figuring out other people's money mindset issues. Just say, okay, unfortunately, that's not a rate that I can work with. I wish you the best of luck. I have had people turn me down because my pricing was what they thought was too high. And then they inevitably came back later when their business was more successful, and that follow through, right? They kept seeing me all over the internet. They still remembered me, and they came back to me anyways. So these are the types of things that go into this consideration of, is my pricing too high? Do I want to change it? Nothing is working. Could it be my pricing? Now, a lot of people think it's their pricing, and it's more likely the proposals and the pitch, but it is worth considering whether there's something off with your pricing. The best way to know this is if people are just straight out telling you that you're too expensive or that they don't understand what you do for that cost. If you say, yeah, I'll make your WordPress website, the cost is $10,000, but you never explain what's included in that or why you're charging $10,000, at least alluding to why you're charging $10,000, a client is more than likely just shutting down. And again, this gets back to the pitch, the proposals, the samples, the follow through. See how all of those other components are things we want to check first before the pricing, because more often than not, it's going to be one of those issues that's holding you back. Now, there's nothing wrong with you as a business owner, as a creative, as a freelancer, if something isn't converting in your marketing cycle. Most of us are new at this. We didn't go to business school. We didn't study entrepreneurship in college. We are figuring things out as we go along and making our best guess at how to run our business. So there's no shame in saying, this isn't working for me. How can I make it better? Where can I get help? What is a skill that I need to brush up on and get better at to be more effective and to convert better clients? That can actually liberate you significantly from the stress of taking it so personally. I love learning new things, and I actually find it to be a really cool challenge to step back and say, okay, my marketing on LinkedIn isn't working. How can I figure out whether this is the right platform for me and how I can improve in doing it, rather than just saying, I'm so frustrated, this doesn't work, the whole world of freelancing sucks, the market's saturated. I see a lot of freelancers like claiming this kind of thing too. Oh, freelancing is dead. Things just aren't like they used to be. It used to be so much easier. No, take a step back and figure out what isn't working and how you can tweak it. As business owners, we have to be adaptable and constantly evolving to see where the market is going. And there is no shame. In fact, there's a tremendous amount of intelligence in stepping back and figuring out what isn't working and trying to determine how you're going to navigate that. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Remember, I've got an awesome Facebook group where you can get tons more free trainings and information and network with other rock star freelancers, all the way from beginners up to your multi-six-figure earners. Take a look on Facebook. It's under Master